Hey, so you'll be episode 10 of the show. You'll be my milestone episode.
Oh, that's no pressure.
And welcome back to Prescription Sound, everybody. And this is episode 10 of the podcast. Can you believe it? No one has stepped in to stop the madness. Thus, we have finally reached double digits. On today's show, I'm joined by Scripps Research graduate student Alyssa Shepard, who has a strong background in the pathways of cancer development, but is also here to share her experiences and growing interest in science communication. So let's join the discussion with Alyssa's initial science inspiration, and then how she arrived at her PhD work at Scripps Research.
Well, we're going to go back just a bit to when I was in kindergarten, even. I was one of those children, that was really interested in dinosaurs. And so I decided I wanted to be a paleontologist. And I wanted to be that all the way until I was maybe, 13. And then my mom got breast cancer, actually. And at that time I decided, well, maybe being a paleontologist isn't so, interesting, spending all the time in the desert and doing who knows what. So I decided I wanted to do cancer research. And so since then, it was all, focused on learning biology and chemistry and stuff like that. So my undergrad was actually, I got a biochemistry degree. And when it came to my senior year, I decided, I wanted to go on to a PhD program. But at the same time, I was applying to some national scholarships. And so I found out pretty much at the same time that I was accepted to both Scripps for the PhD and the Fulbright, which is a year-long program. And so I deferred my acceptance to Scripps and did a year abroad in the UK, getting my master's degree, actually, in cancer cell and molecular biology, which is probably the most mouthful of a degree that I've ever heard of.
It sounds impressive.
So after that, I came back here, moved down to Florida. I'm originally from Michigan, so that was quite a hop going Michigan, England, Florida.
So which lab are you in now, and what's your current research focus?
So I'm in Joe Kissil's lab, and his lab, they kind of work mostly in what I'd say basic biology, understanding pathways and how they function, trying to identify different therapeutic targets. In the past, they've done a lot of work previously on, the KRAS gene and lung cancer as a driver for lung cancer. And he's actually known pretty well for doing a lot of work in the Hippo-YAP pathway, which is involved in, cell contact inhibition and cell growth and things like that. And I don't know if it was kind of a whim or he was reading a paper or they found something that led him to wanting to study naked mole rats, which was kind of a jump. So my project is involved with the naked mole rats, and we're investigating cancer resistance in these naked mole rats.
Right. Yeah, people have to check out these naked mole rats. They really are an unusual critter.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, they seem to be resistant to a whole host of diseases. It's crazy.
Yeah, right. They live so long, for their size. They're expected to live maybe 5 or 6 years, but they live upwards of 30 years in captivity. And you would think that, because they age so long, that they would have a whole host of issues. But no, they basically are perfect throughout their whole lives. So, as humans, as we age, our chances of dying increase with age just because our normal cell functions decrease and things like that. But naked mole rats, their chances of dying remain stagnant all the way through their whole entire life. So I think that's pretty amazing in itself.
It is amazing. Do you know what the prevailing theory is then as to why they don't seem to age or get these diseases?
Oh, there's many theories out there. I mean, naked mole rats have been studied in captivity for just over 50 years now. And for the vast majority of that time, most of the studies in them have been behavioral studies because they are one of only two what are called eusocial animals, so like termites and ants and stuff, how they have like one queen who has all the babies, and then maybe one or two males who breed with the queen, and then all the rest are workers. That's how naked mole rats live, is they have the one queen. And so it wasn't until people began realizing that they had these naked mole rats for like 20-some years, and they're like, none of these naked mole rats are getting sick. There's no tumors developing. They're like, I wonder why that is. Wow. So I think it was maybe 10, 15 years ago that people really started investigating the molecular mechanisms in naked mole rats. So one of the popular theories out there is that they have super early contact inhibition. So, like, when our cells, when they touch each other, they're like, oh, we gotta stop growing. But naked mole rats, I guess, even if they get, close without touching, they're like, oh, we should probably stop growing now. So people see that in culture. Also, hyaluronic acid, which, is a popular kind of ingredient, I guess, in, like, cosmetics and lotions, because they're like, oh, it plumps your skin, and it makes you look youthful. Naked mole rats seem to have more of that, I guess, prevailing throughout their whole bodies. So That's also a theory that people have, and there's a whole host more out there.
It's funny when you said youthful skin, because when you look at these things, they're kind of wrinkly and strange looking.
Yeah, they're pretty ugly. They're not winning any beauty contests anytime soon. That's for sure. Yeah,
it reminds me of those Sphinx cats, the hairless cats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're pretty. I always think that, from the top, naked mole rats are kind of cute, but if you flip them over and you see their, like, really long, yellowy teeth poking out, then they're just, I can't do that.
Wow. So are you guys isolating cells from these rats and then kind of studying the molecular machinery?
So that's part of it. So I do a lot of work in cell culture, culturing naked mole rats. We actually received immortalized cells from a group in England, and that's kind of what I've been using, because we found that the primary naked mole rat cells, they just are so slow growing that I'd probably be here for 10 years or more trying to get anything done. But the main thing that we're trying to do is investigate the supposed cancer resistance in vivo, because a lot of these papers that have been published just use solely cell culture to show their ideas or to prove their theories and stuff like that, but nobody tries then to take it into the animals themselves. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And all the high impact research now, they tend to want all the in vivo stuff as well. So
right, yeah. And I think Joe's is kind of skeptical of some of these claims that some people claim, oh, naked mole rats can never get cancer. And he's kind of skeptical of that. So I think that's partly where this project was born from,
Now, the other reason I wanted to get you on is because you have become extremely famous through Scripps social media. So you're an absolute celebrity.
Oh, well, maybe not that famous, but yeah, it sure took off a lot more than I was expecting it to.
Yeah, definitely. And you, I think, came on my radar through the Scripps Research Takeover Tuesday. So this was a initiative kind of posted on Instagram where they would get a student to take over this Scripps Instagram feed for a day and post what they're up to. And I was extremely impressed. You posted constantly. It was very involved.
Yeah, that was a long day, tiring day, but it was actually really fun, because you see all these, I don't know how much time you spend on Instagram yourself, but a lot of organizations or brands will have these Instagrammers take over their Instagram to kind of show, like either the consumer side of things or just an in-depth look of the everyday nature of the company. And so I thought it was really cool that Scripps reached out and was like, do you want to do this on our Instagram? Because I don't think I've seen any or a lot of, universities, research institutes doing something like that.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I'm glad they've kind of brought this into the fray and have really embraced it. And yeah, it's funny, so many other bigger organizations and companies now are realizing the value of this social media scene. And I saw just last week on your page that it seems like Scripps Research have reached out and you are now an ambassador for them. So how did that come about?
Oh, well, that was also a surprise, like the whole Scripps Takeover Tuesday thing. I just got an email one time from a Zymo representative, and they said, we found you. I think it was because, I love their products anyway. I use them all the time. Their Maxi Prep Kit is just to die for. And so I would post about it all the time, and tag them in it. And so they reached out and they said, oh, we see you use our products pretty frequently. We've read some of your blog posts. We've looked through your Instagram. And we think that our ideals, our goals kind of align with each other. And they said, we're trying to kick off this new, ambassador program, something that's never really been done, in the science realm, having like a sponsored scientist. It doesn't really, benefit me personally. It benefits the science, and then in turn it benefits them, which is, science too. So I think that's really cool. I got lots of free Zymo swag, and they are going to send me a free kit every month to kind of review, talk about, share my experiences with, that sort of thing. So I think that's really cool. It's a new direction in this, social media world for scientists.
Yeah, congratulations. It's really nice to kind of be noticed and then get something at the end of all your efforts for doing this kind of thing. And I know maybe some other people out there, either inside or outside of science, are maybe looking to do the same. So can you share some of your kind of advice on how to get started on the social media scene and any tips?
Probably my biggest advice is don't force it, because if you try to post when you have nothing to post about, or try to talk about something when you have nothing to talk about, it really seems disingenuous, and I think people can see through that. And at the same time, as grad students especially, we're really busy, or as postdocs, we're really busy, and so social media should really be like a side project. It shouldn't be, I'm spending 8 hours a day on Instagram and all this stuff. So if you just, casually scroll through on your lunchtime and, you're like, oh, I have this interesting image of my cells under the microscope, let me just post about that and talk a little bit about what you're doing. I think that's a big thing, too, is explaining what you're doing, because even if, some English major stumbles across your page and they're like, oh, these pictures are interesting, but if you just be like, oh, I stained some cells to do some facts and do some flow cytometry and all these big words that they're not going to understand, it's not going to, engage a wider audience. You might hit some, fellow scientists, but not the other people. So you should be able to talk about what you're doing in a easy to understand sense,
Yeah, these are translatable skills that you can then apply to other avenues, when you're doing posters or talks to people that aren't as familiar with your work. So I think it's really cool.
All right. Well, I was going to say one more thing too, is if you really want to, get people to be engaged with you, you also have to engage with them. You can't just post something and expect other people to like it and respond to it and not respond to other people's things, because there is actually a huge science communication community on Instagram, and there are a bunch of scientists on there who post. We bounce ideas off of each other. I think since I started my Instagram, I've actually tried 3 different things that people have reached out to me through Instagram and said, oh, you should try this, instead of this. And so it's a good place to be, I think.
The other aspect of your media, which I think is really cool, is your science blog, which is, what is it, The Curious Sheep?
Yes.
Great. What inspired the name there?
So my last name is Shepard.
Okay.
And so I like to make jokes about, sheep, shepherd, and I like the phrase, curiosity killed the cat. But that phrase in itself is only half the phrase. I learned this like a couple months ago, that it actually continues and says, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. And I thought it was kind of funny that, this phrase that people use so offhandedly to be like, oh, don't ask questions, just leave me alone, that sort of thing, actually, is trying to encourage that curiosity and that curious nature. And so instead of, like the curious cat, I decided to do the curious sheep because my last name's Shepard.
Yeah, no, I love the blog, and I don't know what application you use, but it looks really slick. And what kind of content are you putting on there generally?
Just general content, anything that comes up that I think of basically to inspire me. So like the very first post that I did was kind of explaining in a general sense what cancer is, because, that's what I study. That's what I know a lot about. I also started a series which I called Research 101, in which I kind of write about biology protocols that I use, every day in lab, but people outside of research might not understand them. And so one of the main goals of me starting this blog was to kind of practice writing for a general audience and start communicating science to non-scientists. That's actually why I started it, because I'm really interested in doing sort of science writing in the future, writing for, the general public to help spread awareness, get rid of, some facts that aren't so true, that non-scientists seem to hold on to, and stuff like that. So it's just kind of general, whatever I'm inspired by.
Yeah, it's such a great aspect of the work, and I think more people need to, do it and get into it in some capacity, just getting thoughts down and getting messages out there. So when you're not inside the lab, what other kind of interests do you have?
Well, I try to spend some time reading. I read a lot of kind of science writing books. My favorite author right now is Mary Roach. She's not a scientist, but she kind of deep dives into different topics related to science, like military science, digestive science, space science, stuff like that. So she's really interesting. I also like playing video games in my spare time.
Cool. What's your video game console of choice?
I use the PC, just my laptop.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very good. If you could give someone one piece of advice or a piece of wisdom, either in science or out of science, in the realm of work, career progression, life, health, wellness, self-improvement, anything, what do you think it would be and why?
I would say my advice would be your goals in life are likely to change as you grow as a person, as you change through new experiences that you have, and that's okay. And I say this because my goals have changed. They've changed kind of slowly, from wanting to be a paleontologist, doing cancer research, and being here. But now, my main goal is to kind of enter this science writing, science communications area, when in the past, my main goal was to, get my PhD, do a postdoc, and then run my own lab someday to, be on the forefront of treating or detecting cancer. And for a while, I struggled with that change, being like, my goal of wanting to be a PI is so much better than my goal of wanting to, bring science to the masses, I guess, and write and share science that way. And, it took me, probably more than a year to be like, it's just a different way of helping people. So, yeah, goals are likely to change just because you're likely to change, and it may take a while, but it's fine if they change.
Some great ideas there from Alyssa on how to get involved and put social media to good use. We'll have links to her blog, The Curious Sheep, and similarly named social media handles in the show notes, so have a gander at those. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, your podcast app, or wherever you enjoy listening to things like this. Thanks again to my guest and to you folks for listening. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll be back again before you know it. Take care.